Thank you so much for agreeing to give this talk. And I know it's a terrible hour there in Brazil, so I really want to thank your organizers and especially you for giving this talk at this time. So a very warm welcome to you. It's such a joy to have you speak for our project. And I'm going to pass you over to Anne, who will MC this event. Thank you.
Can you get this off the front?
Yes, thank you so much, dear Candela, for being here. It really means a lot for us that you are supporting Khyentse Vision Project. And yeah, welcome everyone. Even though I'm sure you all know Chagdud Khadro, I wanted to introduce her briefly. Chagdud Khadro is the spiritual director of Chagdud Wangpo, and that includes Khandroling in Brazil and also the Chagdud Wangpo in South America, like other places in Brazil and Chile and Uruguay. And Khandrola was ordained as a Tibetan Buddhist teacher in 1997 by Chagdud Khadro, who was a great Nyingma master, and they were married starting from 1979. And she remained his devoted student until 2002, when Chagdud Khadro passed away. Khandrola was earlier working as a managing editor in Padma Publishing in the United States and has edited many translations of Tibetan works. And she was also instrumental in the publication of Chagdud Khadro's autobiography, like Lord of the Dance, and compiled many other commentaries and teachings, like Butum Tersanandro, Apova practice by Longsen Ningpo, and also Red Tara practice by Apang Tertön. And Khandrola was also crucial in overseeing the construction projects, for example, the Padmasambhava Pure Land in Khandroling, and all the translation and publishing of texts in Portuguese and Spanish. And is also very much involved in educative projects and projects in regards to death and dying. And apart from the South American activities, she is also teaching in Europe and Australia and United States regularly. She was just in Europe, unfortunately, I missed her. And Khandrola is also in the board of directors of the Middle Way Education and is advising the curriculum here. So what is happening today? Khandrola kindly accepted to teach on this one wonderful text of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo that was translated by our amazing in-house translator, Bernert. And the text is called Clouds of Offerings to Delight the Glorious Magnetizing Lady, in praise of the Bhagavati Kurukulla. And this text we can find in the first volume of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's collected words. And we can also find it in the Drupta Kunde. This is like a compendium of sadhanas. And this is what was transmitted by Khyentse Rinpoche last year in Chandra in India. And this is a big compendium with like 14 volumes compiled by Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo and his disciple Jamyang Wangpo. And who is Kurukulla? Kurukulla is a female deity of the lotus family, and she's very much associated with the magnetizing and enchanting activity. Out of these four tantric activity, this magnetizing activity is, I guess, to bring delusion under control. But also, like Oti Rinpoche is, I once heard him talk about that magnetizing quality that Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo had when he wanted to see somebody. He was just directing his mind towards that person, and that person would naturally come. So I like that story. And yeah, in the text, we will see how Kurukulla is depicted. And and I think that's it from my side. So please, without further ado, please, Khandrola, please teach us on this wonderful text.
So thank you very much, Rani. One thing I'm not sure about in terms of the text is at which point in Khyentse Wangpo's life he wrote this text. I was lost in the the biography, the contra word of Khyentse Wangpo, and tried to find it to see exactly when this text was. Maybe Christian knows. Am I? In any case, I'm very honored by the Khyentse Vision Project to even to approach this subject, which is second. The connection I have of Kurukulla began with Chagdud Rinpoche, who was a devotee of Kurukulla. And even though we hadn't fully completed the requirements to practice the lotus dakini, then he bestowed the empowerments necessary. And so the seed was planted and the roots are growing deeper. But this practice, as I read it, the homage and the praises to Kurukulla, it seems to me to be a great gate to entering this practice, because the actual sadhana of Khyentse Wangpo, as arranged by Konto Rinpoche and the commentaries, the instructions given by Mipon Rinpoche, the sadhana itself is not particularly accessible. It's a practice that needs to be done in retreat and in secret. And so then by invoking the dakini through this sequence of praises, then the sadhana itself begins to become more accessible, more available. And so the text itself, I read stanza by stanza because it helps me to stay close to the text. Namo Kurukulla Panya Nyam. Lotus one, you took the form of a 16-year-old with right leg extended and the left raised. And at pala in hand, you offer refuge. The light of your compassion magnetizes all the three realms, liberating Lady of spontaneous activity. At your feet I bow. And so this homage to Kurukulla, it says a lot, because when we take refuge in the dakini, then we're taking refuge in this space of compassion and love that brings under the control the phenomena of samsara. The power of Kurukulla is the power of love. Every aspect of her presentation, and there are many visualizations. This is slightly different even from the visualization of the sadhana, but there are many visualizations, as is mentioned in the introduction to this text. But all of them are expressing the qualities of love. She's beautiful. She has that magnetizing red color. She wears the ornaments of lotuses, of bone ornaments, of a tiger skin skirt, and also a necklace of skulls that signifies cutting off the neurotic emotions. And so then this is one of the first steps, is to really cultivate that wish to bring love and unconditional love into the lives of sentient beings who are lost in an ocean of conditions that for the most part, for most sentient beings, are loveless, without love. And so the magnetizing Dakini, the power, but subtle power, brings them closer through the radiance of unconditional love. The activities then are manifold. They arise spontaneously from the essence of wisdom, the responsiveness of the Dakini's compassion, her love, however it's needed, however it's wanted, then she responds swiftly and accurately. And so then in the second stanza that begins the praises after this first stanza of homage, the radiant play of light of your pristine wisdom, kindled by your loving affection for us all, is a magical dance of appearances that tame in whatever way is needed, captivating the minds of all beings. To you I bow. And the method of Kurukulla is to generate warmth, love, through the radiance of magnetizing light. And then that light, whether it penetrates samsara, it penetrates the darkness of ignorance of sentient beings. And impartially, when we think of magnetizing, then we think of magnetizing what we want. But that's the catch with the power of the deity. It is only worthwhile, truly, to magnetize the benefit for the teachings and the teachers. When we do that, then we create the benefit for all beings without exception, without partiality. And so then the training is to send out light, to bring beings closer to the warmth of the Dharma, to the light of the Dharma, to the truth of the Dharma, and then to care for them. We can't have the power of magnetizing without the concern, the loving concern for those whom we magnetize. And so then this, my own teacher, Chagdud Rinpoche, and then I also see it in Zensar Khyentse Rinpoche and these great beings who practice this deity. They capture the minds of beings, and then they don't give up on them. Chagdud Rinpoche particularly, there were all kinds of people who approached him, and all kinds of people who formed the retinue, the interdependent sangha, and some of them were really difficult, including me. He once said, "Wow, when I saw you, you were surrounded by a red light, and I should have been warned about the anger." And the willingness to care for crazy, eccentric, difficult, angry, deluded, sentient beings over a long period of time is the quality of the deity. And then this brings results. those who really cannot benefit, then they will go away. Those who can benefit, they will stay close and transform. And so then that responsiveness, it's not always soft. The wisdom of the Lotus family is in the words of the Lotus family, but also in the power to, in ways that are subtle and more direct, because Kurukulla is semi-wrathful, bring under control the willingness to transform one's own mind. And until we truly are willing to transform our own minds, then we're not able to affect the outer environment and its beings in the same way as Khyentse Wangpo demonstrated. The autobiography is so instructive because it shows how he was able to move through samsara and find treasures everywhere, and to surround himself with the greatest beings who could actually manifest the teachings, and even with the assistance of great beings like Kontra Rinpoche, Choling Rinpoche, Chojo Lingpa, and Mipam. The work wasn't finished, but the resonance of that work continues, and the Khyentse Vision Project is the continuation of that. For me, to be in any way able to offer to this project and to continue the effort, the enormous effort involved in gathering the treasures, in transcribing them, and in publishing them, and now to continue to transcribe them and publish them in languages that are modern for us and practitioners of today. I think this is probably one of the most noble efforts available to us as offerers and devotees. So let's go back to the text. You glow, the third verse, the third stanza. You glow with a scarlet splendor, like a mountain of coral powder, kissed by the morning sun. You seduce with a dance of 10 million expressions of the marks and signs, a bloom with a 16-year-old youth and charm. To you I bow. And so, and in practicing the Lotus family deities, and particularly the Red Tara, and in particular the various lineages of Kurukulla, any of the masters, Khyentse Wangpo, Chojo Lingpa, Dogo Khyentse, all of them, they wax poetic in the praises of the deity. It's very seductive, their poetry. And it reveals something about the quality of their devotion, because Khyentse Wangpo is extremely, I think, I don't know, but from what I gather, austere. When Chagdud Rinpoche's mother, Delok Dawadroma, met him in the Guru Rinpoche's Pure Line when she was traveling through the Bardas, she found him quite, austere. And she mentions that, and then as she was leaving, I think he gave her a little smile, and she noticed that too. But the inner love and warmth and the generation of that fire, passion that extends to sentient beings in many different ways. It's revealed in how they praise the deity, how they praise Kurukulla, coral powder kissed by the morning sun. You can imagine that. And so we old ladies who practice the deity always wonder why it's 16-year-olds, you know, is the bloom fall away at 16? But really, 16 expresses the 16 aspects of joy, and the joy that the deity Kurukulla evokes in sentient beings. Joy is something that's needed in this dark world. The passion, the joy to keep going, to keep manifesting love in the face of all of the adversity, war, famine, cruelty. One cannot lose hope, and one needs the reference of the beauty and the passion and the joy of the deity. The next stanza. With the single face of the Dharmakaya and the arms of the four measurables, ablaze in the glow of great bliss, intensely passionate, you display a most seductive air. Your three eyes of the three liberations gazing left. You dance on the two legs of the two truths. To you I bow. And so then, in the form of Kurukulla, we find this reference of beauty and seductiveness. You know, even in Western mythology, the bow and arrow, the arrow of wisdom, the bow of skillful means, is like Cupid's bow. It sends the arrow straight into the heart of sentient beings and awakens that innate capacity for love and compassion in them. The bliss, though, comes from Dharmakaya itself, from emptiness, that shimmering forth from the empty essence, arising from enlightened intention, the intention that is passionate in its connection to sentient beings. In the Apanturtan text, it says, not diverted by desire. The downfall for a practitioner of Kurukulla is to become so single-minded and fixated on one type of outcome, of one type of fulfillment of desire, that one forgets the greater purpose of the deity. That's our tendency anyway, to desire what we want at the expense of the greater passion for the liberation of all sentient beings, the liberation that involves emptiness, signlessness, wishlessness, these qualities of Dharmakaya. When we become too fixated on a certain outcome and forget the scope, the genuine radiance and shimmering forth of bliss that captures the minds of impartially of sentient beings, then we lose the meaning of the practice. And so there's a kind of flexibility there, and I think this is signified by the dance of the two truths, of ultimate truth and relative truth. One influences the relative truth for ultimate truth, but you have to dance with it, you have to move with it, you have to make adjustments to it. If one thing doesn't work, then something else will. And we have here 3 major statues of Kurukulla. 2 are the Khyentse Wangpo, Sadhana, Kurukulla, and the other is of the Dujam. And those legs are very strong. They're not thin supermodel legs. They stand on the earth. And underneath the feet, trampled by Kurukulla's dance, is the self-involvement of the ego. Chagdud Rinpoche's last tanka was a tanka of the Choja Lingpa aspect of Kurukulla. And underneath of the feet is a skinny corpse with blonde hair and blue eyes. And he gave me the tanka, and I identified more with the corpse than the deity. And so the seductiveness of Kurukulla, when you do the practice of the deity, there are a lot of subtle signals. One of them is the appreciation of all women as the emanations of the Dakini. We see in them, in their manifestations, their qualities of feminine wisdom, but also the appreciation of the dakas, of the power of manifestation of phenomena represented by the skillful means of the masculine. It goes together, it's part of the dance. And so it seems to me, after a long time of practice, that it's a process. I don't know what it would be to fully consummate this practice, but to be able to bow in homage and praise to all of it is one outcome. Okay. Your 2 main hands hold to your ear a lotus bow and arrow to shoot at ignorance. And with the hook on Upala held in your other hand, you irresistibly summon all the assets of samsara and nirvana. To you I bow. So I really appreciate Christian's translation, all assets of samsara and nirvana. Because when you are practicing Kurukulla and you're sending out the light, the radiance, and gathering what needs to be gathered, it's not exactly that you want to push away the pollution of ignorance as it manifests in all of the devastation of the earth, because our central commitment as Vajrayana practitioners is pure perception. But in the various forms of praises to Kurukulla, there's always the summoning of what's beautiful, practitioners who can practice, a knowledge that's useful, a wealth that's the foundation of offering for more wealth, this kind of thing. And so then this assets, I think, kind of freed my mind. And in my experience of Chagdud Rinpoche's practice of Kurukulla, what isn't conducive does fall out. I saw 3 times him do this practice for me on one occasion and for others on a different occasion, in which they were in a worldly situation in which there was a big deception, and doing the practice, then what gathered was the truth, and what fell out was the deception. And I could give an example of this, but it's a little bit embarrassing. Maybe I will, it's a short story. When I was in New York and I was a researcher, I worked for various magazines as a fact checker. And I worked for the New Yorker, and I worked for the Audubon magazine. I worked for Harper's magazine, and I worked for Pintas magazine, which is kind of a skin magazine, which is a kind of perversion of the Dakini. And one of the stories that I worked on was a investigative piece about Mexican heroin movement into the United States. So I worked on this piece just before I went to Asia. And what you were supposed to do is check the facts, then you note the sources, and you then give the manuscript back to the magazine so they have this. And so I checked the facts, I noted the sources, but because I was moving, I didn't give the manuscript back to the magazine. And so then several years later, when I came back to the United States after having met the Dharma, having met Chagdud Rinpoche, I called my old editor, the features editor at Pin's House, and he said, "Where have you been? We're in a $6 million lawsuit over that piece on the Mexican heroin." And the way you get sued is that you say something slanderous about an ordinary person. And the ordinary person in this case was a guy who had a used car dealership. And he said, "I'm just a used car dealer. And this magazine has slandered me, saying that I'm a Mexican heroine, when I really didn't have anything to do with my uncle, is, the head of the cartel." And so then when we moved back to the United States, we had the wealth of Dharma, but we didn't have much wealth in terms of money. And so the magazine was really worried that I would come and look like a hippie who had gone to India and come back. It was really shabby. And so they wanted to know what I looked like. And they were willing to buy me new clothes so I could come down and say I had fact-checked this article, even though the manuscript was no longer available. And so I was kind of excited about the new clothes. But Chagdud Rinpoche was not excited about me going down to Los Angeles and testifying against Mexican heroin dealers. And so at the last minute, he started doing this practice. And that day that I was supposed to get on the airplane and go down and get my new clothes, the editor called me up and said, now you don't need to come. It turns out that the guy perjured himself, and we have found the telephone records of all of his conversations to his uncle, the Mexican heroin dealer, who he said he never talked to. And so his own lawyer walked off the case. And so it's like that, like what is deluded and perverse and non-conducive falls away, and there's a kind of truth revealed. And so I saw Rinpoche do that more than once. Then what we hope as practitioners of Kurukulla is that all that's perverse and non-conducive and dark in our own minds, first our own personal minds as practitioners, but then those that we want to influence falls away, and they come closer to the innate truth, the essence, which is none other than the goddess herself. Okay. Next verse. A crown of skulls, a garland of freshly severed heads, and ornaments of bone you wear, all qualities sublimely perfected. On a lotus and moon you stand amidst 10 million crimson lights, served by a host of dakinis. To you I bow. One thing that I experienced is that if you practice this praise of the goddess, then you're served by the emanations of the goddess who arise as the women and the men in your sangha. They all have this kind of feminine space of wisdom. You know, it's kind, how to say, it's offering in the space of wisdom that it's appreciative of the beauty and the fun of the offering. There's a kind of joy in the offering, it's not so materialistic. It's simply like giving what you can give, whether it's your skills as translators, or whether it's your material wealth, whether it's your ability to practice and visualize. There's a kind of pleasure in the offering that evokes more offerings. And lately I've been offering the Khyentse Vision Project with the wish that I have an aspiration that in the future, in future rebirths, that I could actually be a translator, like these translators. How wonderful it is to bring forth and preserve the the great effort of Khyentse Wangpo, Kontro, Chojo Lingpa, Mipam, and the other great masters. For them, I think that mostly the Dakini was inner, but when we go to Dharma centers, we see the retinue of a lot of emanations of this goddess offering service, offering their wealth, offering their knowledge. And to do that, you really have to cut the neurotic kind of transactional purpose of the offering. Because if we offer with some intention to get something back, you know, that will be recognized, or will be the best, or will be the favorite, all of these different things, that might work for a while, but the wisdom of Kurukulla is that that is not conducive, and that will fall away, and then you'll find a freedom in the dance. Here we come to the next stanza, which is again that kind of poetry that's evoked by visualizing the goddess. Khyentse Wangpo writes, I raise my lute to play this soothing eulogy with single-minded faith. by any good gain, this elixir of wisdom sight, may the lotus of benefit and bliss bloom forever, I pray. Now you can imagine, I'd like to know like where he was when he wrote this. Maybe Christian or someone else who's doing the research can come up with that. But I imagine that he's writing this in his retreat, surrounded by the visions of the deity. And outwardly, it's quite austere, but inwardly, the poetry, the beauty, the warmth, the love, the compassion for sentient beings is overflowing in this song of praise. Grant your blessing so that the adept, well trained with pure samaya and prepared through the practice that focus on the support, may accomplish the yoga of approach of the goddess swift and courageous, her mantra and her wisdom pristine. And so this is why I say that doing this praise to Kurukulla, as written by Khyentse Wangpo, opens the door to doing the actual sadhana practice, which otherwise is not very accessible. The requirements of the sadhana are extensive mantra practice, practiced in a certain way. If we read the handbook of that Mipam Rinpoche wrote in terms of the enactment, again, it's really very, very demanding in terms of the substances. The accomplishment is, and the fire pujas are likewise demanding. The Choja Lingpa seems more accessible at the Apantirtan because we've done the Lotus Daktini of the Apantirtan for so many years. It seems like that one is easier, but actually, inwardly, the power of Kurukulla's transformation makes none of them particularly easy. One needs to cut away this attachment to what's not worthy of attachment, and to really recognize that that only the truth of the Dharma, finally, in the end, is worthy of attachment, and then to direct one's attention to the sources of that truth. I'm going to divert for a moment because I have Christine Butler in the room. And when I was reading the Mipam instruction manual, Khyentse Wangpo is really, really generous in a sense that he held it all, but he delegated. He had the power of delegation. Of course, he had the retinue of the greatest practitioners to delegate to, but he did delegate to Mipam this instruction manual for the enactment. And it lists all kinds of substances. And Christine has just spent like 10 years assembling her PhD thesis on consecration, and with a great encyclopedia of the substances. That is really is a Kurukulla kind of activity, that effortful activity, and then offering it so it stands. I just have to say that. Okay. Next. Of the goddess swift and courageous. This is the central vow of Tara that that if one sees what needs to be done and has the wisdom and the skillful means to do it, one responds quickly. You don't put it aside and procrastinate. It takes a kind of courageous courage to actually have the confidence to think, okay, that needs to be done. Let's do it. That comes with practice, that kind of courage. And this is, I see this all over the world as everything is degenerating. There are those who say, okay, this needs to be done in terms of their specific center or in terms of their specific Sangha family, in terms of the teachings and the translations. And then they put all effort to do it, having the confidence that that is worthy, that other things can be moved aside for a period of time. That kind of confidence I really aspire to. The next stanza, Lady Kurukulla, sovereign of samsara and nirvana. The gods bow in awe of your profound accomplishment. Grant your blessing that I may outshine the world and beings with blazing youth of Vajra's strength. And so I know what samsara is. I'm not sure what nirvana is. It's not a word I use. But let's just say that it's a kind of perfection of the three kayas that the consummate Kurukulla represents. And the accomplishment is through the wisdom knowledge that brings about omniscience. And with that, that extraordinary knowledge and wisdom, the kind of knowledge and wisdom that Khyentse Wangpo in the autobiography, it talks about treasures that couldn't be actually revealed. And then at a certain point, I should have marked this book more carefully, but I got lost in it. At a certain point it said, okay, that if you're like Khyentse Wangpo, then every place you go, you see treasures. And there's the circumstances that allow some of them to be revealed and some of them to stay hidden and some of them to be really concealed for another time. That kind of knowledge, that kind of omniscience that sees through the density, the clouds, the veils, the toxins, the gray fog of this degenerate age, and sees the shining potentials underneath and then brings them forth. That kind of knowledge that then is demonstrated by the great masters of the goddess. May their radiance shine through this density and reveal pure Nirmanakaya so that we and countless others can benefit from it. The next stanza. Effortlessly, you gather the wealth of humans and non-humans. Fiercely, you sever harmful ways. You shower upon us a great rain of material riches, fulfilling all our wishes. Grant your blessing so I may accomplish limitless activities. We can gather wealth and then be embarrassed by it. The purpose of wealth is as the substance of offering. And so that hesitation to gather wealth is a hesitation in not seeing the essencelessness of it, the potential manifestation of it as an offering. And I have to say right now that when I see the activity of Sensor Khyentse Rinpoche, like he came to our center again and again and left his offerings in the center with some sort of confidence that we would use them well. At one point, I gave him a very small offering. I mean, small in comparison to what others could offer. I just begged him to take it so that there would be that interdependence and that willingness to accept whatever is given and to use it as a hook, as an interdependence. This is something we have to learn because we are willing to accept some and not to accept others. Even offerings that are impurely made can be dedicated for the benefit of those who have offered them. May the impulse that allowed them to offer, may that be purified. May they come to a place of knowing the ultimate offering that's beyond the giver, beyond the recipient, beyond the transaction. May all offerings become non-transactional and simply an offering to the deity of the three kayas, and then a rain of benefit for beings. And so then the other part of this is that having received offerings, even if we offer and dedicate them, what are we dedicating for? We're dedicating to greater capacity to benefit sentient beings, greater ability. Sometimes it feels like we just want to rest. We don't want to have more, use more, be more, know more, have more opportunities open. We just want to sit back. But this isn't the way of Kurukulla. Those strong legs that dance in samsara, they do their dance and they trample that impulse to simply abide in a kind of nirvanic cessation. Instead, the music of the lute, the poetry, the seduction, the radiance, the awaken in us, and there's more to do. And putting aside, a kind of exhaustion with the what seems to be the limitless capacity of ignorance to manifest itself, one still intends to bring about the radiance and the activities of that radiance that remove that ignorance. Then, finally, in brief, O glorious, magnetizing lady, bless my three doors of body, speech, and mind with your pristine wisdom, that I may gain infinite siddhis, both common and supreme, to accomplish my own and others' benefit just as we wish. So this is really important because the extraordinary siddhis of the goddess, this manifestation of abilities within samsara, we need to know that the capacity of Buddha mind, Buddha nature, Buddha omniscience, Buddha intention is greater still. And this is part of our Mahayana aspiration, our bodhicitta, to never ever lose sight that we too wish to be that deity, that fully enlightened deity of Kurukulla, to manifest the intention of Kurukulla from a state of omniscience, from unstoppable enlightened intention that manifest as deities, as beings, male and female, who can move through the relative truth of samsara with great capacity, but are still in their mind, in their essence, connected with the Dharmakaya of Kurukulla. So I've said a lot in the early morning, and pretty soon people will start to arise in this shrine room to do water bowls of offering. So before they do, maybe there's some questions. I'm going to need somebody else, Summer, to come and hear. I don't hear very well. So she can restate the questions that come over. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. She's embarrassed because she's not dressed in, a proper chuba.
Thank you so much, dear Kandula. And thank you, Summer, for daring to show up. And yes, we do indeed have some questions. One question is, Kandula talked about how Chagdud Rinpoche's mother, Dilokdava Joyma, met Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. Was that in a Delok vision, or did she meet him in sort of real life? And if there are other stories about these encounters.
Yeah, Dilokdava Joyma was a manifestation of white Tara. And when she was 16, she saw through her dreams and visions that she would die. And so she instructed the great lamas of Chomtar, Jamyang Khyentse, and so forth, to clean a room and place her in it with no food whatsoever. And then she ritually washed her body. And she then was without any physical vital signs for five days. Khyentse Wangpo himself had Delok experiences, and there are a number of other women who had Delok experiences, and also men, this kind of life after life, life after death. Anyway, in that state, she went through the bardas, the bardo after death, the hell realms, the ghost realms. She saw all of that. Then she went to 3 pure realms, that of Chenrezig, of Guru Rinpoche, and of Tara. And so the one that is of Tara is very strange, actually, that the one of Khyentse Rinpoche, of Guru Rinpoche, same, but Guru Rinpoche, then she entered that pure realm, and she actually saw her deceased teachers, and she saw Khyentse Wangpo. And he didn't speak to her when she entered the presence of the great masters who were past. But then she saw Yashi Soja. Yashi Soja said, you know, I never take more than a few steps from this place. And yet, Yashi Soja manifests, you know, in many different ways. In any case, as she came out, she had already said, this is all she said, she didn't say much about Khyentse Wangpo. She said that he seemed a little austere, that's the way it was translated in the book, Delok. And then when she came out, he seemed to nod at her and acknowledge that this girl, as she refers to herself, was actually worthy of that experience. And so that's all that was said there. And so she came back, and she, in the first moments after she gained vital signs again, it was very frightening because she was very precious as a Dakini in that region. But as she gained vital signs, then she told the whole of her experience, and a scribe wrote it down. And so it's really an oral transmission. It's not like a book. The book wasn't easy to translate and to produce because it's kind of choppy. But the Chagdud Rinpoche always wanted to get that book. And so in 1991, he went back to Tibet, and we had a camera with a special lens so we could photograph it, because we weren't sure that we would be allowed to take the book out. But in fact, we were able to take it out, and it has been translated. And the title in English is Deluk, Realms Beyond Death. Another question?
Yes, thank you so much. One question from Fernanda is, if we have the feeling that we have obstacles to meet our master when we are in retreat, for example, could we invoke Kurukulla and use her magnetizing power to meet our master in retreat?
I hope so. But I told Rinpoche, because, you know, Rinpoche was surrounded by Dakinis. I asked him, you know, I said, well, I said, maybe I could use this practice on you. He said, it won't work. So that's all I know about that. I would hope that it would work. You know, I would hope that that we could summon, you know, at least the lineage blessing. That's not a long stretch, but a vision of our deceased master, or a vision of our living master. I don't know. There's no promise. I think we have to bring a lot under control, including our samsaric attachment to our master.
Thank you. That leads me to another question. When we talk about attachment to our master, or the passion, what you mentioned earlier, could you elaborate a little bit more between the difference of the ignorant aspect of that passion and its wisdom aspect?
Can you repeat that?
Yes.
Even someone didn't hear.
Sorry. Earlier, you talked about the ignorant aspect of passion and the wisdom aspect of passion. And could you kindly elaborate a little bit more on that?
Okay, so the teaching is discerning wisdom. It's knowing the empty essence of all that arises. And so we, in our fortunate human rebirth, we have pleasures in the samsaric arisings. You know, there's beauty in people, beauty in flowers, beauty, and the sunset, this kind of thing. Knowing that all of this is transitory and in essence, emptiness is the wisdom aspect. And so then in order to practice with skillful means, then we need to know of all of this beauty and all of this possible happiness within samsara, what's truly worthy. And so in the various sadhanas, then we magnetize what's conducive to the Dharma, what's conducive to the teachings, what's conducive, especially with the Lotus Dakini, conducive to the longevity of the teachers. We magnetize that, but still magnetizing that, we know that that also is, in essence, inseparable with emptiness. If we don't know that, then the samsaric aspect comes in. We become fixated on certain parts of it, and we're not able to adjust our attentions. And so then this was really one of the most heartfelt ways we practice Kurukulla is longevity for the lamas. And with Chagdud Rinpoche, I've said this before, and so this is kind of repeating what I've said. And at the end of his life, he saw that he was going to leave that human form. We were so attached to that human form. We liked it. It was big, it was warm, it smelled wonderful, and I don't know, just his mudra, we were so attached to it. And he wasn't attached to it. It was getting old. He was starting to forget things. His hips hurt, his knees hurt, a lot of things hurt. But still he went back into retreat, and he did the longevity practice of Kurukulla, which he told me. And he said, this time it didn't work. He said before, no matter what happened, the outer signs, if they were bad, still the practice, the inner signs were good. He said, this time it didn't work. I didn't actually understand what he was saying. What he was saying is that he would die. And so then being fixated on the outer aspect, the corporeal form of the Lama, is a legitimate fixation for a while, but we have to adjust because the Lamas themselves are leaving a legacy. They're leaving a legacy of practice, of lineage, of a lineage practice, of writings, of temples that have to be maintained, of statues that have to be either completed or consecrated or maintained. All of these things, the legacy that they leave, we have to adjust from our fixation on the corporeal form to the legacy. And then the blessings arise for us. That blessing of enlightened mind, that is always there, that always can be invoked. And we start to see that in many different ways. We see it in the Sangha, we see it in the teachings, we see it in the actual buildings and the art forms, the Nirmanakayas, the pure Nirmanakayas. That is the legacy of the masters. In my case, then, my most valid way of being is of a custodian, kind of a janitor, or a Vajra housewife of the various legacies that Chagdud Rinpoche left behind. That's the adjustment. And I would like to summon the vision of his form. Other people have dreams. This has been denied to me, so I listen to other people's dreams. But The blessings are there. Another question?
Thank you. Yes, Candela. Could you give us the mantra of Kurukulla and maybe also explain a little bit its meaning?
I can't. I won't. You need empowerment. So I'm not going to give, it's not given in the praises here. And what I might do here, but I have translators into other languages, and they don't have the text. I can give the invocation that is in the practice of Khyentse Wangpo. Vacillating and transitory, the life force of subtle and refined essence. Just a moment. Of the three doors is sealed in the three unchanging vajras. May I be blessed by the display of discriminating pristine awareness that ensures sovereignty over samsara and nirvana, over the animate and inanimate. The yogini tantras have great authenticity with profound techniques of direct transmission that are easy to apply. Those excellent ones who uphold the teachings should use these techniques as supports for the accomplishment of the twofold benefit. And so then that is the prologue of the sadhana practice that we have of Khyentse Wangpo. And what I want to say is that if you use this praise as you receive it from the translation and the Khyentse Vision Project, Christian's translation, the echo is in the prologue of the sadhana. That's why I say that doing this praise will open the sadhana for you, and then you'll have the mantra, you'll have the praises, you'll have the various instructions given to you by an authorized master of this practice. I've not been authorized to transmit this practice, really. It's those I practice with are those who received authorization from Chagdud Khadro. Other questions?
Thank you. Yes, there are questions about Kurukulla's relationship to Vajrayogini, or is there a connection or difference? And also to the 21 Taras, if she's one of them, and if yes, which one?
Okay. Let's just say that our Kurukulla has a retinue of Vajra, Ratna, Pema, and Karma Dakinis, and that those retinues have endless Dakinis in their retinue. And so then if we understand the three kayas of Kurukulla, there is no aspect of a feminine manifestation, including Vajrayogini, that's excluded. On the other hand, if we're practicing Vajrayogini, there's no aspect of feminine manifestation that's excluded, including Kurukulla. And so it goes back and forth. In terms of the 21 Taras, as we practice it in the praises of Khenpo Nakchung, then there's the specific Kurukulla in the center of the mandala of the other 20. But they change places. The green Tara can be in the center, And so then the question really opens the door to another teaching. It's maybe not what you want, but one of the ways that we create obstruction and adversity is that instead of understanding the basis in emptiness and feminine wisdom, we become really competitive and fixated on different aspects of the deity, which in their neurotic presentation are anger, pride, selfish desire, jealousy, and a misunderstanding about the nature of it all, which is ignorance. And so then in the various empowerments, you receive sometimes an indication of which door you've entered in the past. You receive another indication from your own teacher as they orchestrate your practice. So when we do Guru Yoga and we find a teacher who has that kind of capability of orchestrating practice, then the blessings that we receive are specifically through them, with Khyentse Khyentse and the various empowerments he's given. All of the aspects of the Dakini are there. We just have to look at the subtle signals, the subtle indications to find out which would be the most productive for us to practice, and then go deeper into that practice, and then we find all of the manifestations. Other question?
Yes, thank you so much. Maybe the last question before we invite also our translator, Christian, on stage. Could you maybe explain a little bit more how to let go of our samsaric attachment to our guru so that we are not bringing this clinging onto the path like that?
Well, I would say that samsaric attachment to the guru is really useful at the beginning, because I asked Chagdud Rinpoche to marry me, and that was totally samsaric. It took a long time to let go of that. And the final teaching was in his impermanence of his corporeal form. But Rinpoche himself said, attachment time, attachment. Not attachment time, not attachment. And so then a lot of times even samsaric attachment to the guru, you know, we love them, we want to serve them. It's helpful to see that all those others who have a similar samsaric attachment are manifestations of the Guru's body, of the Sangha, and not just elbow our way in. I kind of elbowed my way in and others elbowed me out. And so then in that kind of bumptiousness, my friend Lamat Sarang said, this Sangha is the Flintstones, you know, we bump on one another. Chagdud Rinpoche said, that's not virtuous to say that, but it is like the Sangha that knocks off the rough edges. You know, your Sangha, your protectors, they're going to do it in a way that the Guru either doesn't have time to do, or doesn't want to damage the connection, even though he sees that it's samsaric. The Sangha is really like the place where the samsaric attachment becomes purified by seeing the rest of the retinue as valid servants of the guru and of the goddess. Then it's like water flowing over a rock. It becomes purer and purer and purer. And so I pay homage to the retinue of the goddess. Does that help?
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. And
I
now
want
maybe,
to read,
oh, sorry.
Arnie, I want to read the dedication from the Sadhana. I think that I can do.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay. And the dedication and the aspiration prayer. And then you can conclude. So this is still part of the treasure text. Through the power of my practice of approach and accomplishment, and the power of virtue gathered through the 3 times, may all beings actually attain enlightenment, inseparable from the Vajra Queen, and then the auspicious wishes. Om Kuntazangmo, Mother Consort of Basic Space, may there be the auspiciousness of Dharmakaya. Vajra Queen, Supreme Delight, may there be the auspiciousness of Sambhogakaya. Host of Dakinis in the gathering places and channel grounds, may there be auspiciousness of Nirmanakaya. To the Siddhis, both sublime and ordinary, may their eyes be the auspiciousness of virtue. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, dear Kandula. Maybe just briefly, could we have Christian on stage, our translator? Maybe if you Kandula, have something to ask or tell him, that would be lovely, or other way around.
I would really like to ask Krishnan if he knows at which age Khyentse Wangpo, and in what circumstances he wrote this praise, this homage and praise of the Lotus Dakini. Because most of my preparation and talking was rereading the life of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo by Matthew. I'm not going to say the last name correctly.
I guess. Can you hear me?
Cluster.
Thank you, Chagdud Khadro. I also wanted to express my really great joy that you were kind enough to give this teaching on the praise that I translated. It's very humbling for me, and it just gives me a lot of joy that the fruit of this labor was already used in such early stages. So I'm really, really happy about this. The short answer is I don't know exactly when Khyentse Rinpoche wrote this text. We can assume a few things, but of course there is no certainty at all. At least I don't know. Maybe other people will know. There in the colophon, which is usually where we find this information, there's no information about where or when he wrote this text. Sometimes the information where he would have written the text would be helpful as well, but we don't have that. Or at least, wait a minute, let me check. It's been a long time, not that long. Yeah, it's not there. So what we do know is that in his 30s, Khyentse Wangpo made his second trip to central Tibet. And this is where most of the activities that gave birth to all these amazing collections in collaboration with the other great masters that you've mentioned really started. And then later when he returned to Eastern Tibet, then he spent his about 30 last years in retreat. And certainly his activities continued there. So one of the collections which Arne also mentioned at the beginning of this session is the Druptab Kundu, the collection of sadhanas. And this text is included in this collection. That was compiled towards the end of his life, and it was completed by two of his disciples, Jamyang Khyentse and Lothar Wangpo. And I can, this is really guessing, I can guess that when Khyentse Wangpo compiled all these texts, one of the things he did is he supplemented texts wherever necessary, sometimes praises to the deity, sometimes empowerment rituals, sometimes lineage prayers, sometimes short, very often short versified sadhanas. So it's very possible that he would compose this text in the framework of this activity, which would locate it towards the second part of his life, at least. So maybe not in his early years. But again, all of that is just what I could come up with. But unfortunately, we have no certainty in the colophon about that.
We lost the sound. Oops. He's still talking. Okay, then Christian, the other thing I'd like to know is what you're translating next for the Khyentse Vision Project.
For the Khyentse Vision Project, I'm now in a rather large part of my own project, which are Naruka Chöma teachings by Khyentse Wangpo. He wrote about 30 different texts related to that practice. And so I'm involved in translating these at the moment. This will still take some time now, but we are quite well on the way in this part of the project.
Thank you, and thank you for this text. It's beautifully translated, and if the quality of the Khyentse Vision Project is like this, then it's not my place to fundraise, but I would say that this is a worthy offering, and the goddess Kurukulla would certainly approve.
I would like, since you said that, I appreciate your words immensely. Thank you very, very much. And I would also like to highlight a little bit about the process, how we are coming up with these translations, because this is certainly not the work of me alone. I was lucky enough to be the main translator for this, but as in many projects, there are a lot of passages, phrases, expressions that are difficult to understand without the help of native scholars who are trained in the tradition. So for this text, I had the extremely precious help of Sonam Jamto, who was a student at Dzongsar, who was a very eloquent, extremely productive translator and teacher in his own right, actually. And also the help of Albion Butters, who is my editor and who helped me a lot also in formulating a lot of the beautiful phrases that you found in this text. So the thanks are equally targeted at both of these individuals from the Khyentse Vision Project.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you so much, especially you, dear Kandrila, for these wonderful teachings and sharing your time, wisdom, and compassion. This is really exactly what we need to make these unique texts and practices of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo alive and really relevant to us in nowadays time. So yeah, thank you so much for that. And please continue to teach generally, and also please continue to teach us here in the context of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's project, the Khyentse Vision Project. And please have a long and healthy life. And also thank you so much, my dear friend Christian, for being here today and sharing, yes, and sharing, yeah, your expertise, skills here, and being such a brilliant translator for our KVP team. Thank you so much. And over to you, dear Doimala, our project holder.
I just wanted really to add my thanks very, very much.
Sorry, your video is off.
Sorry, my video is off. I just wanted to add my heartfelt thanks. That was such a beautiful talk. Really such a beautiful, beautiful teaching, really kind of evoking something very precious, I think, for all of us. And Kandrila, thank you so much for your support for the project. And thank you so much also to the people that have helped organize this talk at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning in Brazil. We really appreciate all of your effort and kindness. Thank you so much, Anne and Michael from Siddhartha's Intent, who also helped a lot with this webinar, and Christian and everybody. Thank you again. And Kandrila, please, from the depth of my heart, I request you to teach again for us. We will continue to be producing translation after translation, and each one is just as beautiful as the last one. So there's a wealth of texts to teach on. And it really becomes so meaningful when we have these texts brought to life by being able to explore them and have transmission on them and really have the essence of the meaning brought out the way that you did. So thank you so much, really.
Thank you.
All right, we should let Kandro and everybody go and have breakfast. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, everybody, for joining as well. See you next time.